Hello, my name is Danny Schott. I'm poet in residence at the Hoboken Historical Museum. We're coming to you today from beautiful uptown Hoboken, upstairs in the gallery at the Hoboken Historical Museum. What this is an artist gallery talk, and we do this um, before a new show so that we get to know the artist, what makes them tick. As we're talking, feel free to comment on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll try to get to the comments. We have an art opening on Sunday, February 26th, and there's a reception from 2 to 5 p.m. Our artist is Pierce Logan, and we'll talk about him and to him in a little while. Also, on March 26th, Pierce will bring 8 typewriters into the museum, and 8 visitors in each session, I believe there are 2, will be able to compose their own quote-unquote letters that will then be added to the exhibit. And when I talk about the exhibit, we're sitting up here and the poems, the artwork is already mounted on the walls, and they look fantastic, I gotta tell you. So it's my pleasure to introduce Pierce Logan, poet, artist, teacher, entrepreneur. Gore Vidal once put down Jack Kerouac as a typist, not a novelist. However, I think Pierce Logan might take that as a compliment. Also, what I want to say is this exhibit of Pierce's work is totally timely because right now the exhibit in the main floor of the museum is a fires exhibit. And it has to do with the fires, a rather unpleasant and uncomfortable part of Hoboken history that took place between 1978 and 1982. And the fires paved the way for gentrification. But what is also timely about this art exhibit is that the Hoboken Reporter, just in the past couple of months, ceased publishing. And I think it is so important to have local news outlets, and we don't have much of that anymore. They say that all politics is local, and we've sort of lost our forum for that. And Pierce, in his work, touches upon the importance of local media as a democratizing force in this exhibit. And he takes letters written to the Hoboken Reporter in the 1980s and turns them into art, in this case, poems. So let's talk to Pierce. I know you live in Hudson County. I think you live in Hudson County. Did you grow up here?
So I grew up in New Jersey. I was actually born on Staten Island. And
it should be part of Jersey.
Well, they tried, right? Yeah, there was. But yeah, I only lived there until I was 4, so I grew up in New Jersey. But I grew up in Somerset County mostly. But yeah, now I'm in Bayonne.
Okay.
So I've been there for going on 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So
you're also an English teacher, which I totally relate to, having been an English teacher for 33 years. You teach around here?
I teach in Newark.
Okay.
Yeah. So I started teaching English in 2016. And I'm an ESL teacher specifically.
Mm-hmm.
My role right now is a little bit more flexible, but yeah, I'm an English teacher. So yeah.
Good. And how does being a teacher inform your own personal work as a writer? Or does it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think being a teacher is it pushes you to be better at your craft because working with youth, and I didn't start with working with youth because I am an ESL teacher. I started teaching adults, but now that I am working with youth, you take on more of like a role model role, and so I think it pushes me to be better at my craft, to know it better, and yeah, I would say that.
At least for me as a writer, because I was communicating with teenagers, it made me be a lot clearer in my own writing,
Mm.
because it's about communicating ideas. You know, the way I see
Sure.
it.
That's a good point. I think more so my more recent sharing work publicly has pushed me to kind of consider the clarity in my writing.
Okay.
So because I do attend a lot of open mics, and I do because of my typewriter thing that we'll get into, my court poetry, I definitely have to address what the person is asking me to address, right, when
Okay.
I get a prompt. So
Okay. So how did you start writing poetry, or when did you start? Tell me about that.
yeah, I started when I was 14. So yeah, it's been 14 years now. And so it was an outlet for me as a teenager, as a way to express myself. And so when I was a teenager, I started reading a lot. So I think that naturally, when you're exposed to a lot of writing and that's like your input, you kind of have to have some sort of output. And so that was my output. Um, and and yeah, that's how I began. And then it wasn't until later that I actually started sharing my work. Yeah,
Sure,
yeah.
sure. What poets influenced you, or do you admire?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, the first poet that really influenced me was Bob Dylan, because growing up, my dad played a lot of his music,
Mm-hmm.
and he writes a lot of ballads, so he's very poetic. So that was like a big one for me,
Sure.
and I think he continues to influence me in my work. But definitely early on was Bob Dylan. And then I read a lot of like I was reading like Williams Burroughs. I read G.K. Chesterton. So like they're not poets per se, but
Their
they
influences.
influenced my
Yeah.
work a lot. Um, Later on, I became more familiar with like Patti Smith's work. I just recently read her one of her biographies.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, I'm surrounded by a lot of poets now because a lot of my friends are
Right.
poets, so like a lot of contemporary poets. But yeah,
Well, I have to, when it comes to me, I think about all these like literary people, but I keep coming back to Patti Smith because she has influenced me so much. I don't even know if she influenced my work, but made me like reading both Just Kids and M Train. I realized that the heroes I have, I sort of got from Patti Smith often, the things that she would talk about, like, oh, I got to check that out and
mm,
stuff. So since like 1975, she's been influencing me on
yes,
stuff.
I would say yeah, because she was definitely someone who was definitely drawn to a lot of big personalities in the art scene. Like
Mhm.
I definitely can relate to that. Yeah.
Yes. So let's talk about QWERT, QWERT.
Hmm.
What is it?
Yeah, Court. Um, it wasn't the original name for what it is, but it's the one that's stuck and has been around the longest. So QWERT is my typewriter commission business.
Mhm.
So I started it in 2015, and basically I set up with my typewriter in a public space. Originally, I would do pop-ups and just kind of just show up. The first place I went to was Central Park, and we have a picture of that soon. But someone will come to me, approach me, and say, I would like a poem about um, my daughter, my friend, my husband, or my dog,
Mhm.
or this unique part of my life. And I ask some questions, and then I write the poem on the spot for them.
So how do you do that? I see you on the street by Walgreens, and I'm like, that's a little frightening to me because just to be able to produce poetry on the spot like that, do you ever get stumped?
So when you say I have a question for you. So when you say it's scary when you see that, do you mean because of writer's block, it would make you nervous, or?
Yeah, because of my own limitations. Yeah, because of my own limitations. I know I would like freeze up with it, yet you managed to do it. So how do you do it? Like you just type away, or do you have a model in your head, or you just go with it?
Yes, so I would get writer's block if I didn't ask uh, the sufficient questions that I need from the person. So if
Mhm.
they just say, "Oh, my husband's name is Nick. Can you write a poem?" No, I cannot because I don't know Nick. So I
Right.
need you to tell me like, "Oh, well, how did you meet? Like, what's something that you enjoy doing together? What's a unique memory that you have?" And then that really gets me going because then I have something really tangible to work with. There are some Believe it or not, this typewriter requesting that I do is a thing. So people do it around the world.
Mhm.
And some poets do choose to just work off of a word. I prefer not to, which is just something that, an adjustment I've made over time. But I definitely engage the person so much to the point where I feel like I'm just like a medium for them.
Okay, so someone stops by, sees you on the street. I imagine they tell you stuff, give you some money. How long does it take to write a poem generally? I
Yeah,
guess it varies.
it varies a little bit, but again, like just doing it over time, I have a sense of how long it would take me. So I work with two lengths, and one length is a quarter of an 8.5 by 11 page, um, which turns out to be like 25 lines, but 25 like short lines. And then I also have one that's half that length. So the larger one takes me like 10 minutes, and then the shorter one's like 5.
Oh, that's really fast.
It's pretty
Wow,
fast.
good.
Yeah.
Have you ever had any like odd um, encounters with people on the street or unsatisfied customers or anything like that?
Yeah. Well, the odd encounters are not always like, people requesting things. It's just like, just the precarity of being on the street and like you're at the mercy of like whoever's there
Mhm.
or the weather. But in terms of like unsatisfied customers, yeah, there's definitely like a handful. I guess there haven't been too many, which is nice,
Yeah,
which is
that's
great feedback. But yeah, so I don't want to get too into it, but there have been people who have had too much to drink and like that can go one way or another. It can be like on the two ends of the spectrum, but I've had people who are like, very generous because of that or like very angry because of that.
Mhm.
Um, and that has happened in Hoboken and other places. And I've also had people who have been dissatisfied because, uh, quote unquote, I expected a Dr. Seussy poem. What is this? And
Right.
I have a very, I think, pretty distinct style of writing. It is pretty abstract. I do use a lot of description. So I think some people are maybe sometimes surprised for whatever reason.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, they want something because I do you tend to use free form and they're expecting something a little bit more like
Rhyming.
AB,
Yeah.
whatever. And if the person wants that, I will do it within reason because I've had people request sonnets and things like that. But that's not really the tendency of people to request. So
Good. Nobody's asked for a villanelle.
no, I haven't gone Villanelle, but I enjoy Villanelle. But I've had like I do haiku as well. It's pretty common. I do what I call a double decker haiku. So I do also do those, which is like I think I created. I don't know. Maybe there's someone out there who does it as well. But there are two haikus. It's 575, 575, but they flow into each other. So the last line of the first one will connect to this. I call it a double decker haiku.
Oh,
So I
cool.
do that as well, which fits on the smaller page. So yeah,
So you have this, like, for want of a better word, business QWERT. Is there
mm.
anyone else involved in it? Like, do you have people you work who?
I tend to be a lone wolf,
Okay.
but I I just as I said, there are other folks who do this. So when I travel, I sometimes will meet people who do it. I am a part of an Instagram typewriter group chat, and some of us will say, "Hey, I'm coming to Pittsburgh. Let's team up." So I do things like that sometimes. There is a chance that on March 26th we might have a guest or two who also does what I do, and they might help facilitate the workshop.
Oh,
So
cool.
there's a
Cool.
chance that will happen. But yeah, mostly lone wolf. We'll also see a picture or two of like some artist friends who I've collaborated with, but I tend to just do it on my own.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, which brings us to the question, why a manual typewriter? Do you prefer writing like on a typewriter? Like, what got you into just the
Yeah.
typing them out on a typewriter?
Yeah. So, well, one, I can set up anywhere with a manual typewriter. No batteries included, and I don't need to plug it in, which is nice.
Yeah, yeah.
So that just the logistics of that. I do have one electric typewriter, which the space bar is broken. But I've used like one or two here and there. So I think that the manual is a little bit more novel as well, and for what I do, it makes the most sense. I do enjoy using a typewriter because you do get more in touch with what you're writing, and it's nice because I didn't grow up with that, and so it's nice to be able to explore something that has some character to it. But when I type my poems, generally I do paper and pen.
Okay.
So I don't always use my typewriter. Sometimes even just for the sound, I might just get on it. But
No, growing up, I had an old typewriter that I just didn't throw out, and my children growing up were fascinated by it. It was like, might as well have been a butter churn or something, in terms of
yeah,
what it is. I think that's so cool. You have this book here. Mind if I hold it
no,
up?
not at all. Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
called QWERT Poetry's Favorite Requests, Volume 1. Can you tell us about this book and then perhaps choose a poem from it and read it to us? Is that okay?
Surely, yeah. Yes. So this is the first volume of some of my favorites that people have requested. I decided to put this together because every time I write a poem, I scan it. I scan it as a document on my phone, which produces a really nice, rich quality scan of the actual poem. And it captures the wax seal as well, which you can see on, this is my custom seal, so QP, QWERT Poetry. This is like my favorite seal that I've ever done. It's 3 different wax colors. But I wanted to put this together because I do have a couple of collections, but I've never put together a collection that actually is actually like requests from people. And so I wanted to just, I wanted to sort of have a way to cherish and share the poems I've been requested because they're experiences I've had through QWERT. So
Right.
I thought it would make a great collection, and I definitely intend to produce more volumes of it.
Cool. Can you explain the wax seal a little more? Like, I don't totally understand.
Oh yes, so all of my poems. So when someone requests a poem, they can also choose a wax color. I have like a set of different waxes, and I have a sealer. So just like people used to seal up envelopes in the past, I have that whole kit. So when someone requests a poem, I'll take their request, type it up, and then in addition to that, I will put the wax. So that's added to the poem.
So you're going 2 centuries back now.
Yeah, really going back. I use the I use the flexible waxes. I don't use like the spoon that I heat up that is heated up or anything. It's just a little easier for me. But yeah,
Cool.
So that's what I do.
Why don't you read us a poem from there?
Surely. Humor, love, dark. What are we going for? Because I got it all.
Let's see. Let's go humor.
All right. Okay. Here we go. I'm gonna go to Rye Comic of Rochester. So, as I get to the poem, there was a fellow from Rochester who had described himself as a wry comic, and I wrote.
Sounds like a limerick already. There was a guy from Rochester.
Well, above that is a naughty limerick, but I won't read that. It's not very family friendly. But so this was at an event that I was working at, and he requested a poem, and he was quite a character. So, and also in the book, I have a little description of what people said. And I took a poll for that. I did like a little survey. Should I include the description of what people said under the poem or not? And then there was a small majority of people who who wanted me to include that. So that's in the book as well. So you have a little bit of an idea of what they said. All right. Wry Comic of Rochester. While he lives in the woods today, he travels the wooded and populous spaces of the alternative. For the alternative is forcing a laugh at stale jokes, cleaning the crumbs of the last act. So in pants broader than Broadway, and speaking between the wispy tips of an Oz beard.
Oh.
Yeah, he had quite wide pants. So I said they're broader than Broadway.
I love that.
He quite laughed at that one. So.
Okay, that was short. Give us a dark one too.
A dark one as well. Yeah. Okay, I have Lost in Darkness. I will read. Let's see, a longer one. Let's see. Okay. All right, here we go. This one is called Refuge on a Boat. And this was actually a gentleman I met in Hoboken on the usual corner.
Okay.
By Walgreens. And he told me a little bit about his divorce. He started his own business fixing boats and things of that nature. So I kind of tied that all together. Refuge on a Boat. The sea is a merciless beast eating all my loves, making me believe in a man's resurrection. In water, a clock breaks, but in determined hands it heals. In fact, time then turns my ship into decades, my decades into more ships. Whether I go feet first or a rolling barrel of wine first, the land that meets the lips of the lapping sea promises life is not misery. She will write the tale over and over again until love bites its tail and opens its mouth for seduction once again.
Wow, that's great. And I think I know that dude.
You might know this guy, and I see him quite often, and he bought the book actually.
Awesome. Awesome. So that's amazing. Let's talk about this show. The artwork, the poems on the wall around us. It's inspired by the book Yuppies, Invade My Home at Dinnertime, which was, everywhere. It was originally published in 1987, and it's edited by Joseph Barry and John Derevlany. Few questions, but first one that I got to ask, you call your show From a Yuppie's Typewriter, and I have to admit, that gave me pause at first. Can you explain your rationale behind the title, why you called it that?
I had a couple ideas before I decided on that title. I wanted something catchy, just like this book is. It has an extremely catchy title. And
it's counterintuitive because it doesn't seem catchy at all. It's either a really great title or a really terrible title, but it somehow
I think it's fantastic.
Okay.
But I can see that. So first of all, I wrote these on my typewriter, right? And the writing on my typewriter is a pretty central part of what I do as a poet at this point in my life. And what I've done with all of these poems in this collection is I've tried to sort of embody the different residents at the time period and what they had to say about Hoboken. So I tried to really learn their personalities, something like an actor, and sort of piece together the work in the poems. So of course we have Yuppies writing in, we have BNRs, born and raised, we have all sorts of people. But I said, okay, what am I? And the title of the book, what did they choose? They didn't choose Yorkie, they didn't choose BNR, they said Yuppie. The Yuppie is the main problem, is the main conflict in the book, right? If we're looking at it as a story. And then, so I said, okay, what am I? I guess in a sense, I'm a Yuppie. And I know that also.
As a newcomer, it's funny because my two sons who were born here, went to public school here, will always be born and raised. My wife and I, who've lived here over 35 years, will always be newcomers,
Right.
to the people who've been here forever. So,
Right. Well, then that's such an interesting point, because if I can conclude anything from, reading this book, is that there's so much debate about who's really a yuppie, who's really born and raised, who's a York. So, and then there's no real verdict. Like, no one really knows who's who, because it's like, oh well, I'm not a yuppie because I'm a little too old, or I'm not a yuppie because I don't make enough money. So it's like, who is really, like, how do we assign these identities? So, and that's a big sort of question that I was exploring with this work.
okay, so the idea of identity and how it's assigned
Definitely.
to people. Yeah, I'll tell
Definitely.
myself I can't be a yuppie. I'm an English teacher and a poet. So that's not yuppie material, right? But
Right.
it depends
In a
whose
sense.
eyes.
In a sense, I mean, you could also say from my upbringing, I can be considered a yuppie.
Okay.
Because I'd say, like, my family was pretty well off when I was raised. So,
Okay.
when I was growing up. So,
Yuppie stands for what exactly?
young, upwardly mobile professional.
Okay. So does your family consider you upwardly mobile?
I think my mom would say that.
Okay, good. That's good. So getting to the poems on the wall and in your show, how faithful are your poems to the original letters to the editor?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I was definitely mulling that over in my mind when I saw that you were going to ask me that. So I think that an obvious thing on the surface would say, like, some more than others, because there are only so many that, like, really focus in on one letter, in a given chapter, because this book is divided up into chapters. So that's also how I decided to organize the poems, like roughly one per chapter.
Okay.
But I would say, yes, some more than others. But all of them capture one main issue, at least, like, because there are several issues that are, like, big points of contention in the book that come through more than others. So I would say that I was maybe more focused on the general issues people were arguing about than like any particular letter.
Okay, so I'm not quite clear. Are like the letters an amalgamation of what's in the chapter, or are they
Roughly, yeah, I would say so, because each chapter focuses on a particular issue.
okay?
Give or take. Like, I think potentially it could have been organized differently, like, and it would still make sense.
Mhm.
But yeah, roughly that's kind of how I organize the poems. Like, for example, there's a poem titled "Always a Pleasure," and that's based
Vanzetti,
Yes.
our beloved mayor.
and that really focuses on Tom Vanzetti. So yeah, and that's what really the chapter is about, but it's also just about, like, politics and politicians in Hoboken. So
Mhm.
yeah.
As you were going through the book originally, before you like wrote the poems, is there anything that like just stuck out to you that amazed you about like Hoboken or the weirdness of things?
If I had to focus on one thing, it would be probably the drama around the feast, or in particular, like, the fireworks. Like, people were calling them bombs, and, like, some people were saying, like, "Oh my God, like, if you're for the bombs, like, you should just join Gaddafi's hit squad." Like, it was just so dramatic, and then to the point where they had to, like, send out like a survey of, like, if people wanted to still see the letters published in the Hoboken Reporter, because some people were getting so sick of seeing the letters come in. But it turns out that there was, like, a majority for the letters, and there was one person who even said, like, it uplifted her or his or her sick aunt, like, reading it. And I was like, that's a little peculiar. And so there's one poem that talks about that. But yeah, just I would say in general, just like the drama and in particular around the feast.
I just got to tell you, we used to have the best fireworks in the world in Hoboken. I live on 7th Street, and on New Year's Eve, Bloomfield and 7th,
Uh,
they had the most amazing fireworks, just like local, like the street guys. They would get shopping carts full of
oh
fireworks.
shoot,
So we had New Year's parties for years. Not that everybody wanted to come to our house for New Year's, but everybody wanted to see the fireworks.
that's
And
awesome. But so I have a question about that because weren't fireworks illegal in New Jersey at that time or no? Because when I was growing up, I had to I would make a point of driving over to the Pennsylvania side and buying fireworks at fireworks growing up in New Jersey because they were illegal.
well, two things. You're in Hudson County, and secondly, you're in Hoboken. Yeah, there's a lot of things that I don't know if they're legal or not, but they sure were awesome. I'll tell you that. So let's get to you. Spend a lot of time in Hoboken. I know I see you there on Washington Street. From your vantage point, as you see it, um, what aspects of life in Hoboken have fundamentally changed from the Hoboken that you explored in the book?
Wow, yeah, I mean, I think it's like night and day in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's not particular to Hoboken, and I make a point of that in the audio recordings that people will be able to experience.
Oh yeah, and I meant to ask you about that
yeah,
because I noticed there's barcodes
yeah,
under the framed poems.
yes,
What are those barcodes for?
yeah. So the little QR codes underneath each poem will send you to an audio recording. They should all be around like 4 minutes and under, so not too lengthy. And I explain sort of the process behind that particular piece. I highlight certain issues historically that were going on that are important to know to better understand the piece and the perspective in it. And then I read it at the end. So that's what those are. And I bring those up in answer to your question because um, I think that highlight some of those things that I observe as I explore the poem. And I think one major thing would obviously be real estate development, and that's not particular to Hoboken. So, Hoboken, as you go through the Yuppie book, you'll see there are certain images where like people like residents will say, we don't even have a stop sign here. No one respects a stop sign here. There's trash everywhere. Reagan visited and like what really happened, what really came out of that, right? Was he just kind of showing his face like presidents might? And so I think that it's gotten a lot wealthier.
You did definitely.
So that's like one thing, for sure.
Again, it brings us back to the timeliness of this particular art show. While we have the fires exhibit downstairs, it goes hand in hand. Do you see anything, again, from your vantage point, being much younger than me, that still is the same or similar in Hoboken from the 1987 or 1980s version
Yeah.
of it?
Yes, um, I think that there is still a friction around like I think like it's less so like a bedroom community, but in the same way, a lot of people who live in Hoboken work in the city, in New York City,
Right.
and so um, I think that there's still friction there because it's like, well, people might like go to brunch here on the weekends, but they're not really like they're not working here, so it's
Right.
there's a divide still. Um, But I think that's slowly changing. I think even in Bayonne, where I live now, that's changing. They're supposedly um, going to be building a what can I think of it? a ferry directly from Brooklyn to Bayonne, so that's gonna change New Jersey in certain aspects. So I
Sure.
think similarly that's taking place in Hoboken, um, but I would say like that is one main thing. Still mile scarcity.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
There's still like you know thinking of like the Newman Leathers building, for
yeah. A
example,
lot
like
of my
that.
friends work there. Yeah.
Yeah, I know some folks there as well. So that's sort of like I think that's an interesting building because it's sort of like a transitory
It's the last
aspect,
place where artists can
right?
work
So
in
it's kind of
Hoboken.
like that's almost like there's some sort of like soul of like almost like older Hoboken there that remains there. So I think it's sort of like represents a transitory period right now for Hoboken because I think that they're tearing that down soon, right?
Oh God, hopefully not. There's always talks about what to do with the Newman Leather building.
Okay,
I
it's an
mean,
ongoing thing.
yeah, but at this point, it's the last refuge for artists in Hoboken. When we
Yeah.
moved here in the 80s, um, Hoboken and Williamsburg, Brooklyn were very similar. You know,
Mm,
when we went in different directions, Hoboken went for the money, and Williamsburg went for like the artsiness. And now, of course, 35 years later, they're getting to be in the same place almost. But
right.
Hoboken was really artsy, you know, in the now, well, I don't want to say all that's left. That's really unfair. But the main building that's left of that is the Newman Leather building. So there's
Yeah.
always talk about what they're going to do with it. Hopefully, stuff will work out. Let me ask you, let me move for a minute. When people come here, hopefully, a lot of people will come on Sunday to the opening because it's a fantastic show and stuff. What are they going to see when they walk upstairs? What are they
Yeah.
going to see on the
Well,
walls?
a lot of poetry.
Mhm.
So there are 17 original poems. They were all written originally on my typewriter, my Olivetti, from '69.
Oh, wait, let me ask you a question. As
Yeah.
you're explaining, how many typewriters do you own? Or how do you,
So
do you
there's
write
two
on?
that are operable.
Mhm.
One is going to actually stay in the upper gallery throughout the exhibition. That's the Remington. That was actually gifted to me. I'm pointing at it. Folks can't see, but it's
Oh,
behind the
right
screen.
there. I see it.
We can see it. But yeah, that's Remington gifted to me by my stepdad. So that works, and it's a little bit more heavy duty. That's why I'm leaving it here. But I normally use my Olivetti from '69. That's my third main machine. I started with Smith Corona, which is still my favorite. I love Smith Coronas. Then I had Columbia, which is just like I don't know how popular that brand is, but like bright orange. But
Mhm.
now I'm using my Olivetti. But now I have the Olivetti, the Remington. I have a much older. Ooh, it really I bought it for $20. It doesn't really work. Um, that is a Remington as well, and then I have an electric one, which is a Smith Corona, but the space bar is not
Oh, yeah.
working. So it's just like I have a typewriter tool. It's just getting it into the workshop sort of thing.
Where do you get typewriter ribbons?
Yeah, so it's a common misconception that they're like impossible to find. Amazon and eBay,
Okay.
and
Good.
they usually run about like $8 each,
Okay.
so pretty easy to find. But what back to what people will see, they'll see a lot of poems, 17 poems. They are blown up in size, which is really nice because people can really read. It's nice and bold. And then there will also be the originals that I actually like wrote on the typewriter off to the side on everyone's left. Those are also going to be I don't know if I can say for sale. People can purchase them, and some of the funds
Yeah,
will go to the museum, which is fantastic.
that's for
And
sale.
you will get a Yuppie book with the poem, which is awesome. And then you will also see my Remington typewriter, which people can interact with. I don't know how hands-on people will want to get during the opening, but there will be opportunities for that. Um, and people can write whatever they want. I will have paper out, and there is going to be another opportunity for people to really interact with the typewriters.
Oh, that's going to be
That
a
will
lot
be
of
a different
fun.
date.
That's going to be fun. I
think
can't
so.
wait for it. So tell me one more thing before we get to the pictures. March 26th.
Yes.
What is it you're doing exactly?
Wonderful. Yeah. So other typewriter poets have called this a type-in. I might go with that because it seems like a cool thing. So we're going to call it a type-in.
That is a cool thing.
I'm going to call it a type-in. And so I'm going to be hosting a type-in. And so what's going to happen is we're going to have 8 typewriters. If you see 9 or 7, don't say anything mean, but there should be 8 typewriters. And so basically people are going to have an opportunity to use them to write their own letters. So I wanted to give people an opportunity to interact a little bit more with the work. I think that in my experience as an artist and someone who has interacted with other exhibitions, it's always nice to be able to interact a little bit more with it. So just like in the Yuppie book, people wrote their own letters about things that they wanted to voice about Hoboken. I would love if people could do the same thing on March 26th, and then those letters will live as part of the exhibition as well. They might go in the case sort of in front of the museum, but yeah, that's what we're going to do, and I'm going to sort of come around and make sure everyone is pecking and hunting nicely, and fixing things and rolling them in, and all sorts of stuff.
That is really cool. So we can write letters to the now non-existent Hudson Reporter. Do people sign up for this in advance, or just show up, or how?
Yes, I am planning to have a very nice and organized RSVP thing, so that we have an idea of how many people are gonna come, and then have 2 sessions, and sort of see how that works out. But yeah, that's the idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really good. I think it's time that we should get to some photos and slides. So
Sweet.
Maybe we can look at some.
Sweet.
What are we looking at? Who's that?
That's me. I think I was like maybe 8, maybe a little bit older. So I grew up horseback riding. So this is me in an area I grew up in New Jersey. So this is a stable at right outside the ring. I think I may have just gotten off the horse, but yeah, in Far Hills, New Jersey. So for equestrian, they make you dress like this, like formal, for whatever reason. And so that's me. My grandma used to cut my hair, so real.
Yeah, that's a timeless haircut. Yeah, my son's had the same haircut.
I like how tough I look.
Do you still ride?
No, I stopped. So I stopped when my trainer was really pushing me to do like a lot of shows, and I got thrown off pretty bad because I was practicing riding ponies, and then she put me on a horse, and the horse was an ex-race horse, and so when he heard certain sounds, he would get spooked. He threw me off of the show. Terrifying. I heard
so when you say in the show in front of other people?
I was disqualified.
Oh.
They put me on. I remember him. His name was Buddy, and he was the color that we call bay. It's like a nice brown, and he just threw me right off. Yeah, it was miserable. So I stopped.
Oh wow! Let's go to the next slide.
Yeah.
What's going on there? There's
so that's
a lot of colors I see.
Oh yeah. So that's how you know you're a real snowboarder. This is the last time I went snowboarding, and like increasingly we've had less and less snow. So like this was when I went. This was I think last winter. Yeah, not this winter, but the last winter. I went snowboarding with some friends, and this was like my original like snowboarding gear when I first started with my sister when I was younger. And this is Mountain Creek, and as you can see, there's no snow, so it was like man-made snow, and you never want to get a mouthful of that because it tastes terrible.
Mountain Creek's Action Park, right? Or I think so.
It's in Mount Vernon. I don't know.
Yeah, for people
it's
older
also
than
a
you,
water park. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, Action Park was known as Traction Park because the rides were so dangerous, which was part of the allure of it. So yeah,
people want to
it's been renamed Mountain Creek, but yeah.
Yeah, they rebranded. That was wise.
Who's that?
So I'm there in the black t-shirt there in the back, and I'm next to one of my good friends in the floral dress there, and yeah, this was one of the first open mics at this was at Van Gogh's Ear in Jersey, and so my buddy Mel and I, used to go to open mics, and so she was like, one of my artist friends growing up at community college, and she really definitely encouraged me to keep writing and sharing my work. So it's definitely like a memorable moment, that group photo.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah. So these are the humble beginnings. This was at Stangl Factory Market in Flemington, New Jersey. When I used to live a little closer to there. Now it's like quite a drive, but I was pretty loyal to the Saturday morning markets. So this was one of the first times I set up. This is my first typewriter, the Smith Corona, and
The love of your life.
yeah, really. I used to live in Brazil, and I left it there, and then it was given to someone. So otherwise, I would have gotten it back. But yeah, there's a TV dinner table, my first sign. Real rudimentary, but it worked. So
Nice.
so same typewriter, and this was kind of an exciting opportunity, because this was when I was in Brazil. This was an art gallery there by really awesome artists.
When you say Brazil, where in Brazil?
So the Northeast, in a city called Garanhuns, which is in the north, in a state called Pernambuco, which is in the Northeast. And so yeah, I used to live there, and I still would occasionally do my poetry when I had an opportunity, but I would also teach. As I said, I'm an ESL teacher, so I would also teach folks privately there. So
do you speak Portuguese at all?
I do. It's not as good as it was. This must have been in like 2016 or something like that, so it used to be a lot better. But
Sure.
yeah, it's not bad.
Nice.
Cool.
There we got our wax stamp.
Yeah, this is the current wax seal. I started with a little compass, but this is my custom one quart poetry. So this was a kind of it's a beautiful picture, which is why I chose it, but kind of showcases the different colors people can go with. And this was a cool project I did for a online and also brick and mortar store that was like up and coming. And so Third and Mulberry is where it's located, and that's what they call it. So
in New York.
No, this is so the online one is like run by someone in New Jersey, which is one of my friends, but the other one is in Missouri. So but yeah, so they gave me kind of the backstory to it. Another reason I wanted to include it is because it's kind of similar to this project with the Yuppies, right? It's like a kind of a background of this particular place. So I wrote poems that celebrated that and captured the essence of the city there.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. Nice.
Cool. This is my first oblong. Is my first collection of poetry. It is self-published. I wonder if you can guess what the fruit is there.
Pomegranate. Green. No, it's a fruit.
It's a fruit. It's
apple?
a fruit. Yeah, kind of. It's actually a cashew fruit.
I never would have guessed that.
Most people say, "Oh, nice pepper," but so the cashew it grows on top of it. They grow in either red or yellow. The fruits.
Oh wait, that's a real thing, a cashew fruit.
Yeah. So the cashew is that part on top of it. They basically they'll roast it and in like a tin can in a fire, and the cashew is inside of the shell, and then but that's the fruit. You can eat it. It's quite bitter or tart, really. But the cashew trees are just gorgeous. So when I lived in Brazil, that's why this book, there's a little bit of English and Portuguese in there in the poems. So that's why I chose this fruit.
Okay, and who's Sebastian?
La Barbera, yeah, he's we'll see him in one of the photos. He's one of my good friends. He lives in Jersey City, and he did the illustrations in the book. So a little bit of a collaboration.
Nice, nice. There's your orange typewriter.
Yeah, that's the orange. It's missing the little cover for the ribbon, but it's just kind of broken when I got it. So this was in South Orange, where I lived for a couple of years. My mom is still living there, and this bird, his name is Cartoon. He is a parrot, very friendly. One of the
that's a real bird.
That's a real bird. It's
Okay.
not like clipped on. It's a
Okay.
real bird, and he is the companion of a longtime South Orange resident. She would walk around with him, and I wrote him a nice poem, lovely poem, and he's just hanging out. Those are his seeds, and
the peanuts and seeds and stuff.
right, that's his food. And I now have two birds, so yeah,
Parrots.
they're related to parrots. They're cockatiels.
Okay.
Technically, it's the type of parrot.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Interesting.
one of my main spots there. Yeah, this is in Union Square. One of my original locations. This is a pretty great place to write. I mean, the life there is just and the requests. Just I always will put money in, so that's a tip. So I don't do the tip jar anymore. I don't do that, but when I did, I would always make sure there's money in there first, so people,
I'm sorry for laughing. You're so young. That seems to be the thing that people do.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yep.
Newark. Here's haiku about Newark. Brick bodies pump noise. Here is historic glory, wide and lyrical. So when I teach in Newark, and this I wrote for the first school I was teaching at there, and so it was I also include this, right, because it's sort of capturing the essence of a city, similar to the Yuppie project. And I think one thing that was interesting about working at that school was they made sure that like everyone who worked there had a good understanding of like Newark and its history, and so that they actually taught a Newark course, like a history course.
Oh, that's really good.
That was beautiful, and it's something that is really important to me now as a writer, is really having a good understanding of where I'm living and working, and how history plays into that, which is another reason why I'm really thrilled to have this project here at the museum. And so this poem, this haiku is attempting to capture, right, the brick city Newark. And so obviously it's very noisy, but it's also like has been home to like a lot of notable musicians and poets and stuff. And then so here is historic glory, wide and lyrical, wide streets but lyrical. Like there's a lot of
one of my friends and an amazing, terrific poet who passed away, I think, in 2014, Abiri Baraka.
Of course.
His son is mayor. We actually, a few years ago here at the museum, had his wife, Amina Baraka, here because we were doing a thing about music and poetry.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Really good. And are any of your students that you teach native Portuguese speakers?
So when I first started teaching ESL, I was teaching in the Ironbound, and the Ironbound is home to a lot of Portuguese and Brazilian people. So there were definitely quite a number of students there, also Spanish speaking, but I would say the majority are either Dominican, of another Spanish-speaking country, or Haitian.
Okay.
Those are the biggest populations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That looks like Hoboken to me. There's the Thai place. Yeah.
The Thai place, right? Yeah. Wonderful. I really feel like I intuitively found such a wonderful corner, and it's like the best. I just love. People have recommended like other places, and I've tried them, but this is like the best.
What works for you?
It's the best spot. Not even just like, I just think it's the best spot. Like,
so you're diagonally across from City Hall,
right? Yeah. It would be like here if I'm. Yeah. Exactly. Walgreens is there on the corner. Satay is right there. Across from me is and pastas, pizza. I know things have changed over time, but that's what's there now.
Yeah, no, pasta's been there for a long time. Yes.
Yeah, but they changed like ownership, I think, right? So,
Right. La Isla's across the street. Yeah.
right.
Yep.
You could see the box there. You see the little purple and white box there. That was a gift to me. Do you see what that was? The cookie box.
Yeah. No, I can't see.
Insomnia cookie.
Oh,
right,
wow.
right
Yes.
behind the that was gifted
That's
to me.
yeah, that's
So right next to my
yeah.
with some frames there that they're not displayed too nicely, but it's because they might like fly if I don't put them like
Yeah,
that. So,
yeah.
So
Oh, cool.
and then that sign, the white sign, just displays the process of ordering a poem. Yeah.
Nice. Who's that?
So all the way in the back is my sister, my older sister, my only sibling, and then that's my mom. So and then we're at a bar in South Orange. That's my old fashioned, one of my go-to cocktails. So yeah, it's a little family.
Nice.
My mom actually, just pause here because my mom was actually the one who I feel like I need to credit her. She ran into a typewriter artist in the subway when she used to work in Manhattan in 2013, and she got me a poem for myself as a gift, and she also took a photo of him and what he was doing. And then so that kind of planted a seed in my mind,
Right.
and then that's when I started in 2015. And she's also just supported me throughout. So I think she might be here Sunday. So
Okay. She's probably here right now watching.
that'd be cool. Cool. Yeah, this is just like me. Like I wrote a request. I don't have too many photos of myself like holding a poem, but this is again South Orange.
Okay.
Yeah. Bedrock, my second collection. I love that photograph. I took that when I was living in Rochester briefly, and that's like the bridge in Rochester. So I was briefly into like black and white film photography, living with one of my friends who's a big photographer.
Yeah, that's a resting image. That's nice. Nice.
Yeah, and I read from this a little bit earlier. This is my first volume of favorite requests that I've gotten from people, and they're like scans of the original poem. So, I sell all these on my website. So,
And what's your website?
It's QWERT Poetry. So QWERT Poetry.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if you just type it in,
It will pop
it'll
up.
bring this to you. Cool.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other pictures? Okay, so we're at the end, and we're approaching an hour. I think maybe a good way to end this would be for you to read us one of your own poems. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that.
Great. So this is, I've never read this poem, and it is, I would say, medium in length. Haven't like edited it too much, but I thought that, I just I'm going to read. So here we go. Doesn't have a title, but.
Okay, I'll think about titles.
Okay. Sounds great. Here we go. I was looking at a container of soy sauce, thinking about how such potency can exist in such a small place. Like a jewel in your hand containing many refractions of the sun, like my existence on earth beaming with all the stuff before and beyond at once. A pond is a ladle of a lake, and a sea, the ocean partial to a particular land, may be motivated by the beauty of the people coming and going near shores to stay and wave from a closer distance. The seed of a fruit planted in my thoughts blooms to empress trees, to empress of my thoughts, lending themselves to the morning light and becoming wholly integrated into my day by way of love, patience, and my bedroom rainwater. I'll not shy away from the greatness in small things, unfurling myself out into the world and back into my home, its miniature. I just ask that you shut the door when it's time to sleep and recover, as the ocean needs time alone with the sand, sand's feet, and the empress of my mind takes careful time to nourish and prune while I dream of her doing so.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Enclosure. Beautiful. Beautiful. So I think we're pretty much done here. I want to remind people that the opening is going to be on Sunday at 2 p.m., I guess, or
2 to
and
5.
2
Yep.
to 5 is the reception, and the work is amazing. And there's a typewriter here. The poems are on the walls. There's mugs for sale. There's a whole lot. So if you have a chance, come by on Sunday. But if not, the museum is open 6 days a week, I believe. So please come by and support the work of Logan, but also the incredible work that the Hoboken Historical Museum is doing.